Have you ever looked at a law, a rule on the books, and just had this gut feeling that it's wrong, even if it was passed completely by the book? Well, that tension, that clash between the written law and our own internal sense of justice is one of the oldest and most fascinating debates in all of human history.
And it all really boils down to this one huge question that people have been wrestling with for centuries. Is an unjust law still a law? I mean, really, is it? And how you answer that, well, it all comes down to where you think law even comes from in the first place. So, first up, let's explore one side of the coin. This is the idea that there's a kind of law that isn't written down in any book, but is written inside of us, in our very nature. Welcome to the world of natural law. So, what exactly is it? Well, natural law is the theory that there are these universal moral truths out there. And here's the key. They aren't created by governments. They're discovered by using our reason. It's like we all come with this basic software that tells us some things are just right and some are just wrong, simply because we're human.
And this idea, it's not new. I mean, it is ancient. We're talking all the way back to ancient Greece with Aristotle and his concept of natural justice. Then you jump forward a bit to the Middle Ages, where Thomas Aquinas famously connected it all to divine will. And then, bam, the Enlightenment hits, and this same idea becomes the engine for huge, world-changing concepts like liberty and free speech.
Now, I know this can sound a little abstract, but think about it. There are some rules we all just seem to know, no matter where we're from. Things like every person deserves to be treated with dignity, or that taking a life unjustly is wrong, stealing is wrong, fairness is something everyone deserves. These aren't just lines in a law book. They feel like they're hardwired into us.
And if you think this is just some dusty old philosophy, think again. Just take a look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from 1948. Phrases like inherent dignity and inalienable rights. That is pure natural law thinking, right there, forming the very foundation of modern international law.
Okay, so that's the law in our hearts, our moral compass. But what about the law that's actually in the law books? Let's flip the script and talk about the other side of this debate, positive law.
And who better to introduce it than its biggest champion, John Austin? His definition is just so straightforward, no fluff. For him, law is simply a set of rules made by the people in charge, the sovereign, for everybody else to follow. That's it. End of story.
So the key takeaway here is that positive law is all about what humans create. We're talking about the actual statutes, the codes, the regulations you can look up. And a positivist doesn't ask if a law is fair or moral. They ask one simple question. Was this law made by the right people in the right way? It's all about what the law is, not what we wish it ought to be.
Austin even gave us a simple, three-part recipe for what makes a law. First, you need a command. It's an order. Do this, don't do that. Second, it has to come from a sovereign, the person or group in charge. And third, what happens if you don't follow the order? You get a sanction, a penalty. Command, sovereign, sanction. Easy as 1, 2, 3. That's the engine of positive law.
All right, so now we've got our two heavyweights in the ring. On one side, natural law. On the other, positive law. So what happens when they actually clash out in the real world? Oh, this is where things get really interesting.
This chart here just lays it all out perfectly. For natural law, a law gets its power from being moral and reasonable. The big question is always, is this law just? But for positive law, nope. Power comes from the sovereign. The question is, was this law made the right way? And here's the real kicker. A natural law supporter would say a truly evil law isn't really a law at all. A positivist would say, look, it's on the books, so it's the law, period.
Okay, theory is great, but let's see how this plays out in a real case. Sweet versus parsley. So here's the deal. A landlady gets convicted under a drug law because tenants had cannabis in the apartment she was renting out. The crazy part? She had no clue. Zero idea it was there. But the law was what they call strict liability, which means it doesn't matter if you knew or not. You're still on the hook.
And boom, here is the conflict in black and white. From a strict positive law view, the case is open and shut. The law says she's guilty, so she's guilty. But if you're looking at this through a natural law lens, you're probably thinking, no way. It just feels deeply unjust, right? To punish someone for something they didn't even know was happening? That goes against that gut feeling of what's fair.
So you might be thinking, okay, interesting history lesson, but what does this have to do with me today? Well,
Pretty much everything. This isn't some dusty debate for philosophers. This battle between written rules and our sense of justice is happening right now, in courtrooms and governments all over the world, and it affects every one of us.
I mean, just think about it. The entire concept of universal human rights. That's straight out of the natural law playbook. Or what about international law? There's no single world government, no sovereign, which is a huge problem for the positivist view. And we see this clash all the time in constitutional law or in arguments about judicial activism when we debate if judges should just stick to the letter of the law or consider its fairness. And here's a perfect real-world example of this shift in action. In India, the Supreme Court started out super positivist. Basically, the law is the law. But over time, they did a complete 180. They moved towards a justice-focused approach and even established a basic structure of the Constitution, a set of core principles so fundamental that not even the government can change them. That is a massive victory for natural justice.
I just love this quote from the jurist John Salmond that nails the difference. He said, "Case law is gold in the mine, while statute law is the coin of the realm ready for immediate use." Isn't that great? It's like those deep principles of justice are the gold. You have to work hard to dig them out. But a statute, a written law, that's the coin. It's already minted, ready to use, for better or for worse.
And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. But hopefully, now you see just how high the stakes really are. This isn't just a question for lawyers and judges. It's a question for all of us. When the written law, that ready-to-use coin, clashes with what we feel is natural justice, the gold in the mine, which one should we obey?